Hey everybody, welcome back to Modeling from the Ensign's Chair. I'm Will. This is episode 10 of the Enterprise Refit Smoothie build that I've been working on for a while now. I always measure my builds in months, like many other people do. It takes me a while. I take my time with it. I want to make sure it's done right. Last episode I'd sealed up the saucer. I got the interconnecting dorsal mounted onto the saucer, and I started kind of working on some of the seams. Had a couple of things I've run into with it. I'm going to go over that in a minute here. But outside of that, I want to go over, I started working on the secondary hull. So we're going to take a look at that and see some of the progress I've made on that. And what I'm thinking about, though, just like everybody else, I have gotten in the mail this week the new 1000 Star Trek Disco Prize. So I got that and the lighting kit, and I've also got the decals on pre-order. It's going to be a while before I put this one together because for one, I would like to, with the new show being scheduled to come out, I'd like to get some more screenshots of that ship, make sure I do it up right before I start working on it. Plus, I'm sure there's going to be some photo etch and some other parts that are going to come out for it. So I'm going to give it time for that to come out before I even start working on that. And I've got so many other projects lined up that it might be a couple of years before I even get around to that project. But we'll see. The other thing I picked up was a Voyager model. Not a big fan of the next generation ships. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like them. I'll build them eventually. I have done an Enterprise D many years ago, but it's just I'm more of a classic Trek person. I do enjoy the next generation and all the newer series that came out, but it's just to me, I've always enjoyed working on these classic ships more than the next generation ones. But I'll get around to that at some point, just like I will all my other models. I've got, let's see, I think that makes like 5 models, and I know those are rookie numbers to some of you, but like I said, when I'm measuring builds and the length of time I'm doing them in, and like I said, many of you are doing the same, it'll be a couple years before I get all 5 of those done. So, other than that, let's take a look at what we're working at today. Give me a minute, put you on the desk, and we'll get to work. Alright guys, so here's my current setup. I've got a number of things going on at one time. Trying to get some headway here. So let me just go back to this saucer section and the dorsal here for a minute. And just, so I talked before about how much of a lip there is on all the way around pretty much. There's a couple spots where it's evened up, but pretty much all the way around there's a lip on this that needs to be sanded down. However, I am not completely happy with these windows. To me, they're just looking at some of the studio model pictures, they're just way undersized to me, especially when you compare how big the windows are up the top here on our BC deck. So I think since I've got to work on this lip here, I think I'm gonna fill these in. And I tried this before and wasn't too happy with it, but I've got a different way of going about it that I'll go over when I do it. But I think I'm gonna get some epoxy, fill this in, try to level this out some with epoxy, and then sand it and try to blend it all together. I also had this issue here where this just seems like it's a little warped, probably because I put these windows in a little bit too far down. So I've had to leave this unglued, and what I'm going to do is come back and just fill it in so it's even there, and I'm not trying to figure out how to fix where it looks like it's bowed. So I think I'm going to do that. We'll fill these windows in, sand it all smooth, and then I'm going to come back with my my template again and try a little bit of a different technique with getting these windows drilled properly. Outside of that, I started sanding on these seams here. I've got my photon launcher temporarily in place, and grab my battery, and I'll show you what that looks like. now that I've got that in place. But see if we can get this to light up. But you can see that light up in there. So got a little more work to do on that. This is just stuck in there. It's not in there permanently yet because I've got some more work I want to do on these seams, and I don't want to mess up that photon launcher from Shuttlebay. It's actually one of my favorite parts I've gotten from Shuttlebay so far as an add-on. And when I do this, when I get to the end of this, I'll go over everything I've done to it and what I recommend everybody does. But this is definitely going to be on the top of the list as far as upgrades. If you're building the 1537, that photon launcher is a big improvement over the photo etch and definitely over the part that comes with the models. So if you're building 1537, you're looking to get some bang for your buck, definitely get that upgrade part from Shuttlebay. Other than that, again, still working on my seams here. So that's going to be a work in progress. It's going to be a bit before I do anything else with this because once I get this all set up, I think it's going to be easier for me to go ahead and do my Aztecing before I attach this to the secondary hull. So I think I'm going to do all that first, but I got a lot more work to do to this. I've got to do some more sand in here. There's a couple spots where I've accidentally gouged a little bit, so I'm going to fill and sand a little more. Still got to get my bridge and the lower sensor array done up. So that's going to be a work in progress for a while, but I just wanted to go over why you might not see anything done on this for a while because it's going to be a little bit at a time. And I've got updates. I've actually got a Facebook page set up now for I'm going to do more frequent updates on that. I don't want to flood other people's pages and that with my updates. So if you want to look up that page, it's going to be, just go to Facebook and do a search for at Ensign's Chair, and I'll have updates on there frequently as I do these little individual side projects as we're working towards the final goal of getting this project done. So I did jump ahead a little bit. I did start putting together the secondary hull here. I put it together because everything I need to get to, I can get to with it put together, and plus I need to get the front of that put on and in place, but I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So I went ahead and just got this together. I did do a little bit of detailing on the botanical gardens in here. I'm the type of person, if it's not something that's going to be readily seen, I'll do some work on it, but I'm not going to go overboard. And I've seen a lot of people do a lot of nice work on these botanical gardens. But for me, I just kind of like to, there's so much effort you got to put into these models. And I really want to just focus more on putting the detail where it's going to be seen. You're not going to see much of this by the time I put glass, however I go about that. In these windows, you're not going to be able to make out so much, but I did do some detailing to it just to give it some color, put some abstract in there, so when you look in you do see some difference in there, some color. Doesn't look too bad. I don't know if the camera will be able to show that, but I probably don't have enough light for it, but it'll look decent. It'll look decent when you look at it through the windows. So I've got that in place. I'm working on fabricating the ceiling for it. I'm just taking a piece of sheet styrene. I'm going to take some more pieces of sheet styrene, cut it up, and put a little bit of a pattern on the top of it. And then it'll light up nice. I've already put it in place, and it'll light up nice in there. So working on that. Outside of that, I've already done my light blocking and all that in here too. But if you haven't done one of these models, and those of you that have done them, you know that the seams on this thing are ridiculous. It's going to take quite a bit of filling and sanding, some reshaping in some parts. So it's going to be quite a bit of work. I'm going to have to fill, there's some gaps in here that I'm actually going to fill in with epoxy just to make sure it's got a good bond. Because this part here is just, and it's probably partly my fault from working on it, but it's got a really big gap in here, and I just want to make sure I get a little more strength in there. So I'll take some epoxy and I'll reinforce some of these joints, and and some of these other areas. Other thing I want to talk about, as I had shown in the previous video, I'd gotten the green strawberry Shuttlebay for this, Shuttlebay / cargo area, and it does require some modification on the tail fin, the fan section here, and well, unfortunately, I've had a little bit of a mishap with my Shuttlebay, and I dropped it and it broke. And unfortunately, well, it's not really in bad shape. The part that's giving me a problem is the turbo lift shafts here have really become distorted. They're just photo etch parts, and I've tried to bend them back out to shape. They've twisted a little bit, and it's just I don't think I'm going to be able to salvage those and make them look decent. So my thought at first was, well, I just won't put the Shuttlebay in. But the other option I'm thinking of is just doing away with this back part, which is all this stuff here, and making some modifications. This is the floor for the back section where the turbo lift shafts would normally be and where the cargo would normally be. But I know back here with this little hole here, this is, I guess, I don't know if you'd call it a blast door, but this can be closed, or is meant to be able to be closed. So what I think I'm going to do is modify this part. I'll put some not some photo etch, but some sheet styrene. I'll make the door pattern using some reference photos that I've seen. And I think I'm going to close that off, just show it as closed, so that way I don't have to worry about that. As I had shown before too, the decals on this kind of shriveled up and fell apart, and they just didn't work. So I think I'm going to try to paint the lines on here that need to be on here. And then this lighting kit from Botanical Controls does come with the chaser lights. So that's the only reason I really want to include this. If it wasn't for those chaser lights, I'd just say forget it. But that feature is part of the board. I'd like to use it, so I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to try to paint that pattern on the floor that the decal was supposed to be there for. But I think if I modify that and just make it to where that blast door back there is closed, I think it'll look good. I think I can still make it look decent. So it's still got some good detail in it. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Like I said, I've still got to modify that back tail fan section to accommodate this opening. So that's another side project I'll be working on behind the scenes to get that done. That's where I'm at with that, and I'm going to have to cut this all out to make that work. So I'll probably just do like I've done with other parts I need to cut out, and just use a drill bit and drill around, drill the pattern I need, and then cut through it from there. So the other thing that I've been working on is my deflector dish, and let me hook this up so we can take a look at it. Put that battery on, and let's turn this light off, and let's see what we got here. So you can see that lights up. And I love this transition. That I'm glad that Botanical Controls came out with this transition that you can it goes from the amber to the blue, because it really makes the model look nice. Yeah, give it a second. It's going to change over to the blue, and I know the camera tends to wash these out, but you can see, kind of see what I got there. So we got that. That's all ready to go. I just got to install it. I do have to black out this back part though before I install it. Otherwise I'm going to get blue light into the interior of the secondary hull, and I don't want that. And I also don't want the interior lighting from the secondary hull lighting this up. So I'll black that out, and we'll get this installed. But basically the way I did mine, I know different people have different ways of doing things. There's no right or wrong way, but as long as it works. Basically what I did was I took a piece of styrene, and this is probably about 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches deep, and I just rolled it, made a cylinder out of it, super glued it. And then I cut out a circle, put that on top, drilled a little hole to put my bicolor LED in, and hot glued it in place. You'll notice this hot glue is like brown. I accidentally made a mistake and left my hot glue gun on for a couple days. I didn't cut my switch off, so now all my glue's coming out brown. It's going to do that for a while till I get through that glue stick. But yeah, so that's how I made this. That's how I made mine anyway. And I've got pretty good light diffusion. This is the Shapeways part. I will have to do a little bit of sanding out here because you can see lines, I guess, from where it's been printed. But I'm really, excuse me, I'm really pleased with the detail on these printed parts, though. It's even got the ports on here for your thrusters. I'll have to see how those line up to the decals I've got for this, but hopefully they'll line up and work out. But so other than that, I'm going to get this part installed on my secondary hole, and we'll come back. Alright guys, so I've got my deflector dish mounted, and Michael Wiley had told me ahead of time, so I was expecting this, but you gotta do a bit of fill and a bit of build up to get this Shapeways deflector dish to fit on here. Not a lot, but this one a little bit more, but not a lot, not too bad. Shouldn't be too much work to get that fitted on there properly, but I'm liking the way it's turning out so far. It's looking pretty good. So I'll keep working on that, and I also finished and got my botanical garden in place. I got the roof done up. Just took, like I said, just took a piece of styrene. I did cut a couple of smaller pieces of thin strips of styrene to put in there that look like cross members. So it looks like there's a little bit of support going across there. And I just painted this blue on the edges so you get that blue effect that you typically see in the movie coming through these windows. And I think actually on my 1350, I think when you do the 1350, it actually has these little decals that are like clouds that give kind of a blue effect to it. But a little bit of Tamiya blue, clear blue on the back of this did the trick. When I hold it up to a light, it looks pretty good. Probably can't really see it on camera, but let's see. I don't know if that's going to show up on the camera, but yeah, you can see a little bit of that blue in there. But once I get a full strip of LEDs behind it, it's going to light up. The middle part is white, so it'll kind of balance it out, and should look pretty good. Other than that, I'm pretty pleased with it so far. This is secondary hole shaping up. So next thing I'm going to work on, between now and next video, the main thing I'm going to work on is these seams. Try to get these seams done up. I'm going to hold off as long as possible putting strong backs on. I've still got to put my strip lights in here. I've already got them cut out. I got probably end up putting about 6 of these little 2-inch sections inside the secondary hole to get it to light up evenly. But I also want to make sure I've got some light in there for the botanical garden. I want to make sure if I do follow through and put my Shuttlebay in there that I got sufficient light, lighten that up as well. So I think 6 of these should be good for getting this interior lit up, and if not, I can always add more. But that's the plan. So that's what I'm going to be working on for the next couple days at least, and hopefully when I come back next week I'll have this pretty much lit up. If I get time, I'll try to get that Shuttlebay roughed in, see how that's looking. But all in all, it's shaping up pretty good so far. Long way to go still. So just remember, I appreciate everybody watching, but if you enjoy the information or find any information you get here useful, please hit that like button below. If you want to get the updates on this and any future video releases, please hit that subscribe button down there. And as I said before, I'll be doing random little intermittent updates photographically on my Facebook page for this. So if you want to find that Facebook page, I'll put a link down the bottom, but you can also do a search in Facebook for Ensign's Chair. And just follow my page or like my page there, and get any updates that come up through there as well. So I appreciate you watching again. Until next time, keep modeling.